Welcome back to the Leashed Mind podcast. I am your host, Mandy Boutelle. On today's episode, I have a conversation with Mikkel Becker from Fear Free Pets. We kind of talk a little bit about the things that we talked about in the last episode with Karen Chapdelaine from Timeless Dog, touching on, again, the early days of the dog training industry. And I mean, when I say early, I don't even mean that early. I'm talking like anytime before like 2018, even, of just kind of that competitiveness and how there was this like mean-spirited element of like, don't post what I'm posting, even though we all teach the same thing, and how people can get irritated online and just all of those things. But also we kind of touch on the lack of emotional support that happens when we go into these training courses. Doesn't matter what it is, any of the training courses out there. There is little guidance or support when it comes to mental health and how working with clients and their dogs in these sometimes really big behavior situations, how that impacts our mental health, and how sometimes we're kind of taking on the emotional burden that our clients are dealing with because we care so much and we want to help, but we don't realize how that affects us and how that really can bleed into our business and how that affects how we feel about ourselves as trainers and business owners. So we talk about that. We also delve into that evolution that Karen and I talked about as well, of how things have gotten to a more collaborative point with dog trainers and helping each other out, especially, again, after 2020, I feel like a lot of us kind of noticed our mental health and how we were reacting to each other. And it's slowly evolved into something really awesome. And I love to see that with trainers and just helping one another. We also discussed the challenges of maintaining personal mental well-being while working in such a demanding, emotionally taxing profession. Our conversation touches on themes of compassion fatigue, imposter syndrome, and the importance of self-care when we are managing our businesses. We also emphasize the need for the support that we need in these training courses, because I think a lot of us, we need to find a better way to set up these newer training generations so that we are seeing less burnout. Burnout's going to happen, but I think if we can set it up in a way where we can get ahead of it and notice the cues for burnout. So this conversation's awesome. There are a lot of guest appearances from Mikkel's pugs. So you got to watch the YouTube version because they are so cute. Let's get into the episode. It's going to be awesome. Mikkel, I am so excited to have you on the podcast and talk all things mental health with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my God, I am so excited to be here with you today and just to have this opportunity to have real talk and real conversations about what's really going on under the surface.
Because, for years, we do not discuss that in
Yes.
society and specifically in this industry. We were talking a little bit before we hit record about how we have taken all these courses and none of our mentors in that process or just in the course, like, ever talked on about mental health ever. Like,
No.
I don't know about you, but like, it was never touched on. It was
No.
just, here are the mechanics. Here is some behavior. This is how we work with clients a little bit, but like you're kind of on your own.
Yes. No, totally. I think the only thing I ever learned was like how to block out a schedule. Like so that could help you with your mental health. But that's like probably the
That's
closest thing I
surface.
ever got.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally surface. And I just remember getting in the industry and going I remember my first APDT conference was like probably, and it's so different now. This is
Yeah.
but it was, I think it was in Kentucky, and just the atmosphere was so different than it is even today, like where it was so much more like competitive. And I don't even know what year this was. This is probably 2006 to 2008 timeframe, but it was like so competitive. People were backstabbing, kind of mean. Like one speaker would get up and say something, and then the next one would get up and they'd be like, "I can't believe that they just said
Snarky.
that." Like that's don't listen to what they said there. And it was like, whoa! I should have told my mom.
Oh.
I'm like, dude, this is strange. Like this is so weird. And but even then, like there were still people that were so good and so kind. And R.K. Anderson was one of the first kind of friends I had in that industry. And do you know him?
No.
So he's the creator of the Gentle Leader, and He's like
Oh,
yeah, and he was the coolest guy. Like he just did a lot for behavior and in the vet world. And he was like, in his 80s, 90s, still going to conferences.
oh my
And
God.
yeah, he was the coolest guy and just really kind of a pioneer in the behavior field and a huge supporter of being able to have education. But it was cool to talk to him because at the time also people were so afraid of like anthropomorphizing things. So like they couldn't
Right.
say animals have this emotion or this emotion. And thank God it's come so far from that to like actually show, scientifically, like animals have such a huge range of emotions and they are so
Right.
capable. But like back in the day, you had to be so careful. And he would tell me, I was talking to my mom and I one night at dinner, and he's like, I think what's going to happen is we're going to see more and more that ability to like prove that animals have these great depths of emotions, including that ability to love. Which, of course, we all know that with our pets, but like people back in that time, like it was like so taboo to even like talk about emotions or like when I would write articles at the time for Pet Connection, like I would sometimes, get backlash or get in trouble if I made it seem like I was
Too
saying this animal
emotional
was,
or
yeah, an animal is feeling this, feeling fear, feeling, and they're like, well, you can't say what an animal is feeling because it's, that's anthropomorphizing, and it's like, but it's so crazy because that's really what fear
wow.
free is all about is like
Right.
paying attention
How
to
they
what animals are
feel.
feeling, and yeah, and they have such a capacity for all of these emotions, like people really just denied for so long, and we didn't really have that evidence to show it, and now it's like so cool that it's there, and we can show it for animals, and I think we can recognize it more for us as people too. Thank God. So
Oh my God. Well,
come
that's
really
just
far.
it's crazy that it's come that far, and I really feel like 2020 kinda just changed everyone's approach to mental health because it was all right
Yes.
there in front of our face.
Yeah.
Me specifically, I went through a lot of panic attacks,
Mhm.
and it really changed how I approached my mental health because we couldn't leave the house, and it was right in front of us. But just knowing that, like, because now I feel like everything is about how the animal feels.
It is.
It's all about, like, how
Yeah.
we approach it and making sure they are feeling comfortable and confident and safe in the situations, and that's so crazy, that shift, but
Isn't that crazy? It's
that's
so different now.
already a way to, like, gauge of just how much the industry's already changed,
Mhm.
and that was,
Oh,
like, what,
thank God.
almost 20 years ago, so
Yeah, it just seems under yeah, it's so crazy to think about that, and, thank God, and thank God, like, I love that there's so much more out there for mental health for people too. I know, like, it's, like, mental health awareness time right now, and,
yes.
and thinking about, like, our good friend, Dr. Sophia Yen, like, growing up and starting, like, Dr. Yen and Dr. Anderson were two of, like, kind of those people that I looked up to that, kinda helped to
Paved the
mentor
way,
and
yeah.
yeah, and, Dr. Yen, she was just such a strong person, just this person who just, really was so put together and had so many things together. And I think now, it's like, and at the time, like she's starting to open up a little bit about kind of what she's going through, but to very few people. And my dad was lucky enough to, have her be able to open up to him. But it's just hard. It's hard because it's like, Dr. Yen was so able to, treat these animals who were having these really big issues and big mental issues. But it was really hard for her to feel
Take
comfortable, I
that
think, to
on.
do that for herself. Yeah. And to really
Yeah.
think about, doing mental health, really care on her own or like thinking about medications. And I think that's the hard thing is like there's some kind of weird stigma that we can have in our own mind sometimes, or like where we think, okay, we can do it all, we can tackle it all, when really it's like,
Yes.
yeah, to give ourselves grace and like treat ourselves the way with the same kind of compassion we would have for like the animals in our care. I think that's so important.
I listened to the Tales from the Vet Tech, podcast, which if you guys aren't listening to that, it's the podcast by Tabitha Kucera, and it's so awesome.
Yes.
I heard you mention, and it's something that I have always had in my own head on repeat, is I don't have the compassion that I have for others for myself. It never
Yeah.
makes its way back to me. I have always been the meanest and hardest to myself. And, that comes from childhood trauma,
Yeah.
having abusive step parents, not physically, but mentally and psychologically abusive growing up.
Yeah.
You get into that negative headspace of not good enough, don't deserve this recognition. That bleeds so much into our career and how we approach things if that is the mindset we have. And so I'd love to talk about that a little bit more in your experience with that, with your career.
Oh my God, I think that that's so true. It's hard. It's like and I think that those are the things that make you, I think, push harder. And so it's like you have those sides where I'm like, okay, that's probably where I got to where I was, feeling like, okay, I have to do more. I have to, people
Next
always
step.
tease me.
What's next?
Yes, totally. And
Next achievement.
yeah, I need to get this certification. I need to do this or go through this class. And then it's like, okay, where does that come from now that I've done all that? Like where does
And when
that
do I
come
stop?
from? Yeah, when do I
Yeah.
stop? It's never enough. And so there's like the positive sides where I'm like, okay, I value education, but it's,
You're passionate.
yeah, but what's really under that is this insecurity. And I always like kind of had this like thought of other trainers or people where I'm like, the ones that are just super confident and it doesn't matter kind of, their background, but they just know what they know. And I've never been like that. Like I've never had that kind of like self-assurance to be like that. And
Same.
and I think like in some ways there are some positives to that because it makes you more open. It makes you be like, okay, I actually want to learn more. So you're more open to education. You're more open to other possibilities. But at the same time, it's really debilitating sometimes because, and it's also debilitating in the way of like, I would catch myself being so worried or aware of like, what is this person feeling? How am I making them feel? How can I change this in a way that like I can help them feel better or them to, not feel, upset with me. And
Oh my God, you're in my brain right now. That is
yeah,
exactly
isn't that crazy?
that's how it is. It's like, did I make them feel negative about me?
Yes.
Like, did I put a weird feeling out there? Do I need to
Mhm.
fix that? Like, I am
Yeah.
constantly that person asking my spouse, like, are you mad at me? Did I do
Yes.
anything? And it's like, I
Mhm.
know I did nothing, but
No.
like, it's trauma.
Yeah.
In that need to like, okay, I need to make sure everyone is
Yeah.
homeostasis. We're good. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, and you take on this responsibility that is just so big, and then it really makes you, I think, vulnerable to certain people too that really take advantage of that part of your nature.
oh
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, which is, the biggest thing that I do now that's helped me so much, whether it's like on video, if it's doing an interview, if it's like writing something, is I just come at it from this. So I have two different tattoos on my wrist. One says free and the other says truth. And both of those are kind of like guiding principles for me. And like the part of like truth, it's like, I just want to like really speak what I honestly feel and to not have any, and to kind of do it with this freedom and this abandon. And, because
Not
if
worrying about
anything,
judgment.
yeah, because
Yeah.
if anything, I think if you're coming from it from that headspace of always being so concerned, you're always going to be on the side of like doing too little than too much. And so it's like giving yourself that freedom to be like, no, I really need to say this. And sometimes there are those hard truths that it's really difficult to say, especially to people that you care about. But I think, at the end of the day, it's like you are actually, you're doing the right thing by helping them and you can feel good that you've spoken your truth. You've done what you can and then like leaving it up to them. And it's hard, but it's like that part of being able to let go and be like, I can't change another person. They have to want to change themselves. So you do what you can, and then you have to kind of like let it go from there.
Oh my God. You guys just let that sink in for a minute because like really
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of times and this goes back to trauma, this goes to working with clients, but we get caught up in I need to help them. I need to
Yeah.
help them form a training plan. We need to get management under control. I need to set them up in a way that they are going to get help. And we're human. Mistakes
Yes.
happen, things happen. You can't control every situation. You can't control your clients and how they are going to train, how they're going to manage. You're doing the best you can, providing the information and the tools that you can. After that, it's out of your control. You can
Mhm.
check in, you can do homework, but you can't make people change. And
No.
I think a lot of the times we get into this career because we feel so passionate about helping and sticking up for, I mean, that's why we all love animals, that, we want to be the voice for them and advocate for them and help people bridge that understanding of how to approach this. And then we get caught up of, oh, I didn't do enough. I didn't provide enough information. It's my fault. And we internalize it. And then it turns into imposter syndrome. Then we feel like a
Yep.
shitty trainer. Then we feel like we shouldn't do this anymore. And oh, hi, that's why Mandy left the industry in 2020
Yeah.
because I got in my own head of thinking I would never get better at it. Um, and that's okay because I went down a different route and I love what I do now. But I wish I would have stayed with training because it is something I really loved. I
Mhm.
loved the practical application of it. And it was the communication with the clients that was hard for me and setting realistic goals because they come to you with all these problems and they're like,
Mhm.
help me. And you're like, yes, great. Especially when you're a green trainer, you're like, I got it all. Let's plan it all.
Yes.
But then you're like, it's hard to bring them down to earth a little bit and be like, no, you're not going to be able to push your stroller, walk your reactive dog, drink your coffee, and walk on your phone.
Yeah.
Like, it was so hard to have that, like, come to Jesus moment with them because they'd be like, well, what are you talking about? You're the trainer. Why can't you?
Yeah, you
And
should
it's like,
fix this. It's almost like they see those TV shows where the behavior is just fixed. Like, why can't you fix it? And
it's like, well, that was filmed over like 3 to 4 months.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then in some of those, it's like the behavior's inhibited. It's not really fixed. That's going to come back with a vengeance, but
They got lucky when they were filming and there weren't any
yeah,
triggers.
totally. Yeah, totally. And especially like, in those situations where, you're using more fear force based kind of training, like the dog is
Of
shut
course.
down and the person doesn't know that when they're in that state of learned helplessness, that's not a good positive state. That's not a calm state. It's that pet is just terrified. They're shut down. They're like inhibiting what, their outward expression of that behavior that comes from that root emotion, but you aren't fixing that emotion. You're making it worse, and you are taking away their ability to communicate their unrest and how they actually feel. And so when you take that away, there's going to probably be fewer warnings in the future, and you're going to get a lot more of a severe bite. And
Yes.
yeah, so but yeah, it's like someone looks at that and they think, okay, I want you to fix this, and and that's that part of like being able to, I don't know, I almost think of it now because I like you said, as a green trainer, like I took that stuff so personally. And I wanted to
Right.
fix all these dogs, fix these people, I guess,
Let me
make
help
it
you.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But you can't. You can't. Like, you can do what you can, and if they take the tools that you've given them, they can make a huge difference for their pet, but they have to be there. They have to be willing to change, and so many times, too, you're working with all these other family dynamics that you don't realize you're gonna be
Yes.
working with, and you go into training where it's like, it's kind of marital counseling, relational counseling with their kids. Like, there's so much stuff. Like, I think we don't give ourselves credit for the amount of, like, emotional navigation and coaching that we have to do, because it's for not only that dog or whatever pet we're working with, but it's like this entire family and all of these other people coming into their lives that we're also trying to coach and guide, and it's a lot.
Well, and like a lot of times I feel like people don't even consider like the whole family dynamic in the training plan because a lot of us have encountered this. It's been always the wife that contacts you and wants
Always.
to do the training plan. And no offense to husbands, because there are some unicorns out there. Mine is one. But it's always been the situation of wife contacts you for the training plan. And then the other spouse is just like, meh. And then you're like, okay, well, how am I going to make a difference if only one of you is on board?
Yeah.
Only one of you are listening. I had a training situation where my client had a background in applied behavior analysis. She worked with special needs children. And so she had the understanding. So I'm like, great, you're going to understand me. This was the one that was like, I want to walk my reactive dog and drink my coffee and be on my phone. And I'm like, lady,
Wow.
do we not understand behavior here? Like,
Isn't that crazy? It's so interesting.
the disconnect
Yeah.
from like children and dog, but it's like it's the same way we approach it.
Yeah. And it's so much of it is like, I think that's the other thing too, that like as a newbie trainer, that I feel like that I want to help people feel. I was just actually talking to a veterinarian about this the other day. They were like, what, I would love for you to meet my one dog, but my other dog is just so cray cray. You would totally judge me. And I'm like, girl, I would not judge you for a minute. Like,
No.
I have one of those cray cray dogs, little Otis right here. He's so sweet, but he is.
Oh gosh,
He
she looks like a
is,
little panda bear.
He does. He's so cute. He's the best little guy, but oh my God, he is, he's our sensitive soul. Like, he's our dog that, like, he went through 5 homes before we got him, and he's had a hard time. And so I have one of those, and some of my trainer friends, like, they feel embarrassed and ashamed when they have an issue with their puppy that now is an adult dog, and they're like, well, I don't have that excuse that I had this rescue. And I'm like, sometimes there's so much at play. There's genetics, there's this, and so, we still like this burden. You have to have these like picture perfect kids, and that's not realistic. They're individuals. They're just like people, and it's like that is such a burden too that we have unnecessarily, I think.
Right. And I feel like a lot of times, and I love that so many trainers are changing the way they do consults and that they're not coming in the house, like, because that's what we were
Yeah.
doing before 2020. We
Mhm.
were going in the house and assessing things, and we'd be overstimulated. And a
Yes.
lot of us are neurodivergent and have ADHD. So
Yep.
it was
I'm right there.
overstimulating going in the
Mhm.
house and trying to focus on the client. There's kids in the background, the
Yeah.
dog's barking and wanting your attention because you smell like hot dogs. And
Yeah.
it's a whole thing, and so that's changed, and I feel like people are realizing, like, "Oh, there are easier ways to set ourselves up for this and set the clients up, set the dogs up, and not stress and overstimulate everyone else
Yes.
involved."
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that is so interesting. It's like thinking about, yeah, what sets you up for success, and like the cool thing about ADHD is like you can get in that hyper focus mode, and like I'll get in that sometimes where I'm like with the client, and it's like
And we can
everything is
lean
just going.
into it.
Yeah, and you can totally get into it, and then, but like you said, other times I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting that. I can feel that deer in the headlights feeling, that panic, that overwhelm. I just feel like in this, I'm like frazzled, and that's
Yes,
like the
it's like you
worst
hear
feeling.
everything
Yes.
and you can't think.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, like, even just recognizing that, because I felt so alone in that too, like, feeling that, and, like, and there'd be days, like, where I would come back from classes, or, classes where it's like I had, like, a normal, it's just, like, typical manners class, but then all of a sudden we have this one dog that's just really, really a lot, or this person that's really a lot, and it's just like, "Oh my god," and those are the days when I would come home, or I'd be driving home, and like, "I don't know that I wanna be doing this anymore." Like,
Right.
and just feel, but I don't know, it really helped me to get with a good group of trainers and to be able to actually start talking about those things and realize that I'm not alone, because I felt so alone in that, and realizing
Right.
that's normal, that's human, that's typical. Like, of course you feel that way, but like, I don't know, it's like almost thinking that you have this, I have this like superhuman expectation upon myself to fix all these things and to not be upset by these things that, of course, you would be upset by it or feel overwhelmed by it. It's kind of a crazy thing when I look back.
Well, and it's funny because it's like, any other profession, they would prioritize mental health.
Yes.
Doctors, now vets really take care of their mental
Yes.
health. Like, it's about time. And so now trainers are starting to get on that. And, Annie Phoenix is starting to work with the people from Not One More Vet for trainers. And so it's like, my hope is that it just keeps getting better. And this is something that her and I talked about the other day, is that a lot of us, so training isn't really considered a profession with the Census Bureau. A lot of times we label ourselves as small business owners because that's what we
Yeah.
are. But the statistic we're not able to clearly read of who is leaving the training industry, those that are having a hard time struggling mentally and, losing their lives from this job. We aren't able to see that statistically to really know if there's a difference because they're labeled as small business owners, not dog trainers.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
I had a whole conversation with my husband the other day, and I was like, it's not considered a real thing when it's like people work themselves into the ground doing this, trying to
Mhm.
help each other and get so burnt out. And we lose so many people that could have been incredible trainers because they got burnt out and overwhelmed and didn't want to do it anymore. And they didn't see a way that that could change.
Yeah. Gosh, that's yeah, it's hard to hear, and but I can totally see that.
Yeah, but we don't think about it because it's like, "Oh, we're a dog trainer, it's unregulated industry, what are we gonna do?" And it's just
Yeah.
like, "Well, okay, we can't keep living like this."
No. And to, yeah, feel unsupported, and to, yeah, feel alone, feel like it's something wrong with you, or I should be, I don't know. At least for me, that's what how I used to feel. Is like there's something wrong with me. That like
Right.
I need to
I'm
be.
the problem.
Yeah, yeah, like, I'm just not good enough sometimes too. I'd always have that, or I'd have that, like, comparison to other people, and,
Comparison.
that's, I know. It's such a, and trying to, like, do your training according to kinda, like, what works for them, and how, what makes, but it's like, I think that that's the other thing that I've come a long ways in, is, like, being able to, like, give myself freedom to, first of all, not feel like I have to fix everything. So I actually started to limit, like, when I give, and this is really hard because I do want to fix everything, but, like, it's, I still have that desire, but I'm like, "Okay, I'm only gonna give them, like, 4 recommendations, like,
'Cause that's all
4."
they can
Yeah,
handle
that's all they can
too.
handle. Yeah, and, like, to even know, like, statistically, it was, like, I think it was on separation anxiety that if you give more than 4 instructions, people are going to have less success than if you're giving them fewer instructions. So like, okay, that gives me some relief to not feel like I have to fix everything, having a better
Right.
timetable. And then, yeah, being able to, I think it's like being able to recognize what your gifts are. Cause like some people, like my friend Kim Leffick is, I mean, she is the bomb. She's amazing. She's just like this like amazing trainer, so structured. Like she has the best boundaries. And like, I mean, I learned so much from her. She was like, and I love that about her. And I'm like, but she appreciated about me that like I would always kind of like my brain is more creative, I guess, in that way, like where,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, totally. And so I would try to follow this formula, but like I couldn't do it. I wasn't as good with it. And it's like so it's like I take what I got from her, which is like to have this structure and this kind of outline, but then like give myself grace to like, kind of somewhat free form it and be able to kind of like sometimes I pick up on things that I don't think other people pick up on. But like
Right.
that's kind of the gift in that too. It's like recognizing that gift in and of yourself. Like maybe I'm not the best on, having a structure, but I really can pick up on these other things that maybe other people miss out on. And I can train this in a different way that maybe nobody's really thought of for this pet. And, recognizing that as a strength. So I don't know. I feel like I've given myself a lot more grace and I've just tried to appreciate that part of myself right there.
Oh, and you're leaning into your natural talents, which I
Yeah.
think a lot of us, it took me years to realize like I'm more creative. I am not
Yes.
analytical, never will
No.
be. And that is a
No.
good thing because
Yeah.
the world needs creative people. And I feel like a good chunk of people in this profession, we are creative. And
Hmm.
that's why we are in an industry where we are using our hands and we
Yeah.
are, it's not sitting in front of a desk all day. I hope not for a
No.
lot of us. But it's just being able to tap into what we are naturally good at. It's going to make our career so much more enjoyable. And I feel like a lot of the times, we have to wear all the hats and we take it all on and then we aren't doing what we're good at. And that is why I had a whole episode with Milena DiMartini about delegating because I think people get caught in the I need to wear the hats, I need to juggle it all because I'm a small business owner, therefore I do it all. And
Yes.
you can, but you're going to peter out and lose steam very quick. And when you're not doing what you're just naturally attracted to and good at, you lose that spark and that drive for keeping going because you're just like, I'm doing admin work, like, how many
Mhm.
days out of the week? When am I actually training? When am I learning? When am I having fun? We got into this because we want to train. We didn't get into this because we wanted to spend, 40 hours in front of the computer. Like,
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's exhausting. That's so exhausting. Yeah. And being able to find like someone, I think that you can like complement each other and complement each
yes.
other's strengths. And yeah, that was the thing. Like sometimes she would, like him, she is just the best person. But like she and I would complement each other because sometimes there'd be certain clients like where she's like, oh, I can't deal with them today. Like, and I'm like, I don't
I
know. Like I
can.
kind of, I yeah, I
Yeah.
have
I
fun with
like
it.
it.
Like I
Yeah.
think people are interesting. Like I like kind of like having, and then I'm like, okay, Kim, you can follow up with the email. Like you did that piece. And it's like, for me, that's hard. That's the hard part. It's like,
Same.
yeah, I hate that.
Thinking
It's like,
through that. Yeah.
yes, and like thinking, okay, how do I use my words here or this here? And she's so good. She already has like her pre-done handout. Like she has all that stuff. And I just it's hard for me. And so like I would go, like I could work with the people. That part was fun and easier. And and then she could help me out when I was feeling exhausted there. And and sometimes I don't know, it's like at least for me, like, recognizing having adult ADHD and getting diagnosed later, like in life, I feel like I can recognize that part of myself where I get frazzled or I get burnout and I'm just like in that state of overwhelm and, being able to like get help there and trying to like take advantage of like those energy flows. Cause sometimes those things are so much easier. So I'm like, okay, I'll just like bust this out and I'll get this article done in like 2 hours. But like if I'm
Right.
trying to do it at a time when I'm not in that flow, that thing will take me like 5 days. Like,
Right, you do have to be
yeah.
in the certain I'm dying over your pug right now. Like, for those that are looking on YouTube, they're just getting such a kick out of it. It was just like, just up at your chin, like, "Mom, just look at me."
He's my baby. He's so
Cracking
funny.
me
Yeah,
up.
he loves when there are interviews because he just gets to sit on my lap and he waits. He usually gets treats every once in a while, which I guess I haven't. I've been stingy today. He's still
Oh my
waiting.
god.
Patient.
Sorry, dog distraction. but ADHD. But no, I think not that we all need that diagnosis. It's not like, it's not like we're trying to label ourselves because I feel like, we all hate putting labels on animals. It's not what this
Mhm.
is. It's getting an understanding so that we can figure out how to change our behavior, how to set up our
Mhm.
antecedents. And
Yeah.
we're not going to know that without a proper diagnosis. And that is something I talked with my psychiatrist about this because I had such a struggle with thinking I didn't need my ADHD medication.
Mhm.
And I would just be like, I haven't taken it for X amount of days. And she's like, why? It helps you. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like I can power through it and like,
Yeah.
I don't need it. But she's like, Okay, well, how about instead of thinking of it as, this is what you are and this is your diagnosis, it's this is how your brain works and these are the ways we can set it up so that it can work in your favor and not stress you out. And I was just
Mm.
like, you just like explained dog training a little bit to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And you
it's so
see
true.
that overlap a
Mhm.
lot.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
They falling asleep, listen up. He's so no,
What him?
that is the interesting thing. Yeah, like where I mean, I know that I have the same thing with my medication sometimes, like where I'm like, oh, I'm okay. I don't necessarily need it. And God, no, I'm getting distracted.
It's
Out of
so
someone and
weird. I
rest on my
do.
arm. I gotta give him a treat. I'm like,
You have
it's
to. The
just thank
torture.
you. I
Oh
know.
my God. I feel like
It's
everyone's
so
gonna have to
cute.
jump on YouTube and
Yeah.
see this.
It's
Oh,
so funny.
sorry.
Oh my goodness, you guys. So I'm sorry, that was my squirrel moment. I forgot what we were talking
No, it's
about,
too
but
good.
oh yeah,
Just ADHD
medication.
and need
Yes.
medication. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be able to like understand yourself better. Oh, like just like we were talking, this is my squirrel moment, but I'm coming back.
Shiny.
Yeah. Like knowing that about yourself and knowing how you work the best. Like I know we were talking about like having a treadmill desk. Like that has been
I want
such a
one so bad.
lifesaver for me because then I can do that stuff that sucks so bad, which is like for me, it's like the email, those things. Like if I'm walking on my treadmill, I have my under desk elliptical, like that helps so much.
It
Or
engages your brain.
yeah, it does. It totally engages
It's
your
like
brain.
manually starting our brain.
Yes, totally. And I don't know if this is a way for you, but like sometimes like when I get that stage of burnout too, and I think that this is just, I mean, so for some of that stuff that's just taxing work where it's just repetitive stuff, like whether it's like taxes, for instance, or certain things like that's where I'll turn on a show, like a show that like I can just kind of watch in the background and that
Comfort
helps.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, that helps me feel like, okay, this is better. Or I'll turn on some good music, like something gets me like pumped up because otherwise I'm like, I just, even with medication, sometimes like I'm just really struggling with this. So finding some way to make that situation better for yourself and not so stressful.
You're setting up your environment.
Yes,
That's
that's so
in
true. Yeah,
like that's what it is.
yeah, yeah.
But I feel like again, we know all of this for dog training, but we never think to train ourselves and set ourselves up that way. And that's I love that you say that you turn on TV too, because I do that too, and I always feel guilty. I'll
Yep.
be like on the couch when I have to do the mundane, like repetitive work of like
Hmm.
uploading designs on the website. And I'm like, all
Yep.
right, this is gonna take 3 hours and I don't want to sit at my
Yeah.
desk. I will fall
Yeah.
asleep
That's
or
torture,
get
isn't it?
distracted and walk
Yeah.
away. And so I'll
Yeah.
be like, okay, I'm sitting on the couch. I have a
Hmm.
snack, turning
Yep.
on a show. I might get distracted. That's
Yep.
okay. And my husband will be like,
100% me too.
are you working? I'm like, yes, I'm working.
Yep.
It's in the background. It
Yes.
just keeps me focused because
It does.
otherwise you're just like, I don't want to do this. This is awful. It
Mhm.
sucks. And I'm not going to be able to focus.
Yeah, and you're gonna
And
put it off so much longer.
yes, when it's like
Mhm.
something that does not take that long.
No. No, but yeah, it's like just make it better, make it less stressful, more enjoyable, and you're gonna get it done. Like, yeah, I make myself a little special drink, like it's just, Fresca and cranberry juice or whatever it is. Like I just
Just
have that in my
something.
snacks. Yeah,
Yeah.
something. And then it's like, yeah, have that and you have your show. And yeah, it makes it go by so much faster. Cause otherwise it's kind of torturous when you're like sitting there and you're trapped at your desk and you
Right. And
have
you're
to
like,
do
no one else
work.
is going to do this. I have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a lot of brain power kind of work either.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you can have those things going on if it's going to make you feel better in the moment.
Yes.
I have plenty of so I do a bunch of random things. I do design work, I do the podcast, I do a lot of things. And half of my job in the tasks I have, I'm not sitting at my desk because there are certain tasks where I'm like, I know I'm not going to be able to focus in that environment. I might go sit
Yes.
in a big comfy chair. I might go work at the kitchen table. It's
Mhm.
whatever I know I'm needing in that moment. And that's
Yes.
okay. Like, I feel like a lot of times we get in this, like, this is how I have to do it because
Yeah.
this is how XYZ does it and they're
Mhm.
successful. But it's like, but your success isn't going to be the same as theirs. Your
No.
business isn't going to be the same as theirs. The
Mhm.
way your brain works is probably not the same as theirs.
Yeah, and, like, even, like, as you're saying this, I'm like, yeah, as you said, there's so many parallels to, like, dog training, and I'm even thinking, like, what kind of emotional state are you in that situation?
Or if
Yeah.
you're a woman, like, where are you at in your cycle? Because that
Yes.
really messes you up.
Yes, it definitely does. Yeah, as I was saying right before getting on this today, I was like, "Oh, crap, I forgot it was a video." And so, yeah, had the big pimple on my nose, and I'm like, "Oh my god," I'm like covering it up. And but yeah, no, it's like sometimes, yeah, you'll have those times where you feel high energy or low energy, and like there'll be days like I'm telling you, like I wish I could like make some amount of proceed from the treadmill desk sales that I've made, probably
You
just because I'm like
should.
such a
Yes.
fan. But I'm like, I freaking love that thing because I hate exercise. Like I really do. But like I will, but I also I get that stir crazy feeling and that deer in the headlights feeling sometimes when I'm working. And it like I don't get that when I'm on my treadmill desk. And there'll be days
No.
where I walk like, 8 miles easy, sometimes 15 miles, which that's a crazy day. I don't normally do that. Usually my typical is like, 4 miles, but it's like so nice because I get that done without,
You don't have to
without
go for a
even
walk.
realizing.
Yeah, don't need
Yeah.
to leave.
Yeah, it's so nice. And but yeah, and then there are some days though where I'm like, gosh, even like 2 miles feels like a lot. And I'm like, oh, then I'll get those thoughts. I'm being lazy or whatever. And I'm like, no, like it's just it's normal to have those energy changes in your life.
Oh my god, I think that's so important because I know for me, but I'm sure a lot of us feel this way too, of just we try to set up habits in a way where it's like, okay, this is my morning routine, this is
Yeah.
how it's going to work, but it's not going to be the same every day. Some days you might wake up, this morning I woke up and was not feeling my normal sparkly self,
Mhm.
and that's okay. I just have to
Yes.
adjust it and move through my day
Mhm.
gentle and in a way that I love myself and I
Yes.
want myself to do good. But our energy isn't going to be the same. Sometimes, we'll have a full book of clients and we're just like, how am I going to get through this? And it's remembering that we love what we do. Our clients are
Mhm.
hiring us because we are the professional and they are seeking our advice. No one is giving you these huge, unrealistic expectations but yourself.
Yes.
And that is just the negative self-talk that you can just, take that. I call that bad Mandy. Like bad
Mhm.
Mandy needs to shut up. She needs to go away. Like get out of here. And
Yes.
it takes practice. It's work. It's training. We have management plans in, place for us. But a lot of the times my self-talk will start getting negative and I'll just be like, shut up. Like
Mhm.
go. Like you don't need to be here. And I had a whole conversation with Tabitha about, a lot of times we get into our heads and we have that negative self-talk and we'll just be like, oh, these people don't like me. I didn't get
Yeah.
enough likes on this video. This reel only got this many views. That's okay.
Mhm.
Not every single thing is going to be perfect. And I think
Yes.
that we always need that. We grew up in social media. So we all need that, like me,
Yeah.
engage with me. You're not engaging with me. You don't like me. But the right people will engage with you. The right people will like your content. And
Mhm.
I will say this repeatedly, but the people on social media are not paying you. So don't put so much effort in something that isn't, fueling your life.
Yes, absolutely. And be okay taking a break. Like there's some weeks like where, even my Instagram, normally I'm on there a lot more but I'll get in the flow sometimes and it's okay to not post every single week. Like I,
Right.
I think that that's a burden. It becomes a burden and social media becomes like not fun when you are putting so much pressure on yourself. And then, yeah,
And
if you feel in the
comparing.
mood, like, yeah, go ahead and post that. Or if you feel passionate about something, that's like the perfect time to do it. At least for me, it's like, but yeah, when I try and schedule stuff out, because a lot of people will, which I think it's awesome. If you are the type of person that can just like schedule this post out and that post out, like cool. I love that. And I wish I was that way, but I'm not that way. Like, but if I'm in the mood or in the moment or something is really exciting, like, that's when I'm
That's
gonna
when
post
it,
it.
yeah.
And that content always gets far more likes because I'm actually feeling it versus like
Right. It's not
something that
automated and like, meh.
yeah, totally. So
Right.
I think it's okay to do that and to not feel so pressured that you have to, have this certain thing done. And because, yeah, otherwise it becomes so stressful. And also to be okay, in some situations, like when there are those negative voices, you don't have to keep those people honestly on your page. Like it's okay to kick people out.
It's
Like,
your page, it's your
yes,
space. Yeah, I am a big advocate for block and delete. It's,
yes,
it's not worth your energy. And
no,
like, I know there are instances where it is a good situation to respond in a nice way,
yeah.
acknowledge someone asking a question. Yes, of course. But
Mhm.
still, you don't have to do it if it's going to drain you. And like
Yeah.
me, I'm an overthinker. And
Yes.
so I have a habit of I'll send a message or send a response, and then I will pick through it and be like, oh, did I say that right? Should I not have said it that
Mhm.
way? Was there a tone? Did they
Yes.
get my correct tone? Did I
Yes.
use too much tone? Was I bitchy? And it's just like,
Uh-huh.
oh God, the effort that goes into that, was it worth me responding?
Yeah. No, I feel you 100% right there. That like, yeah, that's me. So I get it. I get it. Yeah. And like sometimes you'll see people like where it's like, okay, like you'll get those little wins, but sometimes you just literally can't win. Like, I mean, this is just an example. Like I was putting on because I was made aware of this in like the last few years is like, traveling with your pet. Yes, not everyone's gonna have like a safe travel harness or carrier for their pet. But the more I've learned about it, the more I'm like, God, this is like really, and I don't think most people know how dangerous it is for pets to be in these travel devices that aren't actually like crash tested and approved. So like to me, I'm like, I want to like share that message, like just how dangerous some of those systems could be, like a zip line, for instance, the zip line car
Oh my
tethers or
gosh.
the bungee, or like they have like the booster seat car travels.
Right.
Like none of those that I like at least for on the center of pet safety, like all of those are like far more dangerous to your pet than just riding loose. And they're more dangerous to other people too, because it kind of slingshots the animal. And, and it can, and like those certain harnesses that are marketed for travel, but I haven't actually been crash tested and approved, they're going to actually cause even more internal damage to the animal. So like, I
Right.
feel like I'm like trying to, advocate for animals and be like, okay, just so you're aware, like this is what you can do. And these are some safe options. Like it's really worth, honestly, it's worth that investment because you are going to be protecting your pet, by getting that certain crate carrier harness, whatever it might be. But even on that, when I posted that, it's like,
Oh, there's always
how dare
somebody.
you? Yeah. Like it was like, how dare you do this? And like, I do this. And
I
you
use
just
the
make me feel like
booster
a bad
seat.
person. Yeah. Yeah. And you made me feel like a bad person. I'm like, I really try.
That's
Like,
not the
no,
intention.
it's not. And that's the hard part is like, I think that's the thing too, is like just having humor in it and realizing no matter what you do, like, you're going to get criticism and you're going to always have some people that push back. And so sometimes it's like you can say your thing and then you just ignore them. But I mean, when there are those people that are repeatedly critical and, and just are bringing a bad voice and they don't change, that's where maybe they just, yeah, you don't need them on your page. Like
No,
why
you're
waste that energy?
and this is another thing I said with Tabitha, but it's just you're not at made for everybody. And
Yeah.
your clients, you're not going to cater to everyone. It's going to be specific people that work for you. And, that's why woof culture has worked because it's
Yeah.
very specific and niched. And I have learned to very much like weed out and find my audience where I know like these people care, they are nice. And if they are not nice, they are not allowed on my page because I don't have the energy for it. I spent way too much of my career fighting for myself and, trying to be like, no, like, don't tell me this isn't right. This is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, get out. And but of course you're a bitch for doing that. And it's like, what?
Mhm.
For defending myself and
Yeah.
advocating for my page and my space and my business? How? It's
Oh, just hearing that gets me fired up because I'm like, I feel like that part of being a strong woman, that is such a valuable thing. And I think we have to get rid of that feeling of like, and it's almost like, I feel like you preface it, or I preface it sometimes in the past I have, where I'm like, I'm not meaning to be a bitch, but here's this thing. And it's like, and
and
it's
why
just
do we
not
need
that
to
deep.
soften that delivery?
Yeah,
Like,
you don't need to. And it's not anything personal. And you're saying stuff that like a guy could say and it's not a problem. And it's
and a
like,
man wouldn't approach it that way.
never, never. And it's just you being strong. And like, I think that's where, I really, really appreciate my dad for that because he's always supported me sticking up for myself and being a strong woman. And that's unusual, I think, in our culture because so many women, made to feel like they're the problem when they're standing up for themselves. And, I just, yeah, I celebrate strong women and, I want that for others. And I think so many women, it's like, any of my friends and people in the industry is like all of us doubt ourselves so much and second guess ourselves so much. And, it's like, I think giving yourself the freedom, like you need to like advocate for yourself and respect yourself the way that you would other people, because you wouldn't put that on anybody else. If that was your friend in that situation, you'd be like, you go girl, they deserve that. Like, advocate, you're
Right.
doing the right thing. But then it's like when it's ourselves, it's like we have this like
I
crazy second.
minimize.
Yeah. And it's like, letting that go and be like, no, I think it's like having kind of justice for yourself in those situations, because, it's like, I think sometimes we just put up with so much stuff and then we keep putting up with it. And that's not healthy. And like you said, it's like it leads to burnout. It leads to those feelings of like, this is so negative. I don't want to do this. This is so exhausting. And you
Yeah.
get to that really low point in life. And it's like, no, you need to stand up for yourself. Like, that's good to stand up for yourself and to call things like they are rather than tippy toe and pretend like things don't exist. And, that's, yeah. So I could go on
No,
that
it's
for a
great.
while. But yeah.
Well, and I think it is good to stand up for ourselves and say, like, no, this isn't okay. I'm not
Mhm.
tolerating this. But at the same time, don't, of course, I feel like it just needs to be said, but like, don't do it in a mean and condescending way
Yeah.
where you're tearing somebody else down, because then
Mhm.
you're just adding to the problem. But I think everyone knows that.
No,
But
absolutely.
you're so right. And another thing, God, I keep mentioning Tabitha.
I love Tabitha.
I
She's
love
she's one
Tabitha.
of one of my good friends.
She's awesome. I love
Yeah.
her. But, she was hyping me up about woof culture on the episode. And I was like, to toot my own horn. And my body language went like this. And so those that are watching on YouTube, I kind of just curled and tucked in. And she was like, that is so interesting that your whole body language shifted, even though you were trying to talk,
Yeah.
proudly about yourself. You still kind of, and I'm like, I still do that. I minimize myself so
Mhm.
much. And the amount of people I talk to that are like, oh, I love what you're doing. Like, and I need to work on that clearly. But a lot of the times I'll just be like, oh, I'm not that cool. Like, I don't know why you like me. And I
Yeah.
have so many friends that are like, why are you doing that? You are cool. You do deserve this
Yes.
recognition. And I'm just like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm not like that with those people. Like, I'm just back here in the background. Like,
Yeah, yeah. No, totally. And you need those people that like can call that out in you. And I think that's like having those good friends. So when you are having those moments of self-doubt, like talking through it with them and then being able to be like, no, that's
I
normal.
am
Like that's
awesome.
good. And
Yeah.
yeah, really, truly, if anything, I think that as, really any of my women friends or even my guy friends that have, when they face those situations, when they are second guessing themselves, it's just so hard on themselves. Like I
Yeah.
don't ever really see it the other way, because it's like
And
you
they
have
wouldn't talk to you like that.
exactly. And you have like those two types where you have like a person that is more of an internalizer, or you have a person that's more of an externalizer. And the
Right.
externalizer, they're going to be the type that's always somebody else's fault. They're blaming people all the time. As an internalizer, it's like just like how you said, like where it's like I think about this all the time and I second guess myself, I doubt myself, or I like, it's like I run through, did I say this right? Did I do this
Mhm.
right? That's an internalizer right there. That's that
Yep.
part of you that's like, and if anything, I think as an internalizer is like you are never, it's gonna take a lot for you to ever go too far. Like maybe
Right.
and maybe when you're first testing out those boundaries, you have those moments where it's like, okay, I snapped here or I said this, and you can go back, but like give yourself grace and like not feel like you even have to get it all perfect when you are having confrontation and when you're giving yourself permission to have that, because it's a learning experience. And being able to take that space, really think through your feelings and being able to come back, whether sometimes it's putting it in writing. Like when I first started having better boundaries, I was doing it in writing and that helped me. Like now I can like speak it
Yeah.
out and I'm comfortable with that now. But yeah, do what works for you, what helps you to feel in control and what helps you to not minimize what you're feeling. Cause I think sometimes too, if that other person isn't responding well, then we can like start to okay, I'm gonna appease you now. I'm gonna try and make this better.
Right.
Or yeah, to respect yourself and not go there. Maybe put it in writing at the start if you need to.
I love that. And that's whatever it takes to help us slowly build on that, because
Yeah.
a lot of us are former people pleasers and overthinkers, and
Yes.
we need those extra layers, and they're completely okay and acceptable, whatever it is that is going to advocate for you and your mental health so that you can keep doing what you love, because otherwise you're going to burn out so fast. And
Yes.
the burnout can only stack up so many times before you start thinking, am I right for this? When of
Mhm.
course you are, because that's why you got into this. That's why it fueled you to take these steps.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And recognizing those signs of like fear, anxiety, and stress in yourself. Like I think we can be so good about recognizing it in animals. And then, yeah, when it comes to our own self, it's like we can ignore it until it builds to that point where, in
It
fear
just
free, like,
explodes.
yeah, where you're at the red level, or you're just exploding, or you're just like totally imploding in on yourself, which that's actually another thing I've been learning. So just in this last week, it's so cool, like how with like self development, how you always are learning and growing. And it's like
It's a journey.
it is. It's totally a journey. And I feel like sometimes, like when you're talking about being hard on yourself, it's like, I think when it comes to change or anything stressful or anything that bad happens, like you have a certain pattern of like, how do you react to this? And I never really related to that part of like that outward anger because I was like, I don't really feel that. But then I started to think about it and like, I don't know, it's just like an
How it
adjustment.
manifests differently.
Yeah, for me, it always comes out as like I implode. Like I get really down on myself. I get really judgy of myself. And it's like, and even these things I truly didn't have control over, like I find some weird way to be like, I
Bully
could have stopped
yourself.
it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And yeah, then it's like, so then, and that comes in right after that part of I try and fix it. I try and fix
Right.
this, try and make it better. And then when that doesn't happen, then I get really down on myself. I go into that imploding mode and then I'm anxious and then I get kind of depressed about it. And
And then your
like,
whole body just feels
yeah,
dysregulated.
totally. Yeah, to even just recognize those patterns that like, okay, this is what I do when I'm under stress. And like, I've been dealing with there's been a bunch of stuff with my daughter. Unfortunately, she's been having these seizures kind of out of nowhere
Oh
since March.
god.
And so it's been very stressful. And but giving myself grace in that situation because honestly, like we did the seminar on change with our fear free group, which it was like the perfect thing to have happen like during this time. So I'm like, God, like I didn't even realize how hard I'm being on myself about this situation. I could have been a better mom. I could have done this. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with this. And I am.
No,
But it's so
yeah.
weird to like
We are
recognize your thoughts,
and how our brains go to that point.
Yes,
The brain is a crazy place. I think we all know that with
it
the
is.
amount we work with behavior, but it's so true. And you're so on point with it of just we can acknowledge all this with animals and we study this and we learn so much about it. And it can apply to us. But a lot of the times we don't want to see that or we're
Mhm.
just gonna like put our head down and just get the work done.
Yes.
And then we wonder why we get burnt out.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, yeah, we're not taking care of ourselves. And
Mhm.
one thing that I have really worked hard on is I was the last person I would keep a promise to. I always broke promises to myself. I never held myself at the higher level that I deserved, never prioritized myself. And once I started doing that, I started enjoying what I was doing more because I
I
was
love
taking
that.
care of myself. And
Yeah.
sounds so silly right now, but in hindsight, it really is a matter of just like remembering to feed myself, remembering to
Yeah.
drink water, move my body, like just little acts of love throughout the day. And I know that just sounds like, okay, Mandy, but really like that is like this is how we are going to keep loving what we are doing if we are taking care of ourselves. We are nothing to our clients if we are falling apart and burnt out. We
Yeah.
have to show up as our best selves, and we can't do that if we are not taking care of ourselves.
No, and it's yeah, and you think about that, it's like, yeah, anytime when you are feeling the most fulfilled and the most like kind of centered within who you are in such a better place, a more equipped
You're
place to help other
unstoppable.
people. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's so good to like come at these things with like that thought of like curiosity. So like that curious
Yeah.
mindset rather than that like judgmental mindset. Because even like when you recognize those patterns in yourself, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like I did this, or that's interesting that like my first thought was this, or like, like you're talking about like having this feeling like panic attacks. Like I've experienced those in the past too. And I haven't had them in a really long
I
time.
haven't
But
either. Knock
yeah.
on wood.
Well, and well, it was really weird. I happened to have one for the first time in like years the other day, and it was like out of nowhere. I was listening to this like I was working, and I had my jam songs on, and this like Bohemian song came on with these drums, and it was like, but I didn't go into full panic attack mode, but I could start
It
to feel like
shook you
my
up a
heart.
little.
It really did, and I started to feel this like anxiety, and like started to think about the situation situation. I know we talked about this a little at the start, but like at one of the bad relationships I had with this guy, I call his code name is Kylo Ren from like Star Wars. But I started to think about him and I'm like, oh, where did that come from? And
You
it
just
was interesting. Yeah, and I realized
connect.
Trigger was
Mhm.
that song, which goes back to this time I had with him in the Bahamas. It was honestly super traumatizing. And it's like, and all of a sudden I'm having those emotions come up. But like, yeah, to feel like I'm having that curious mindset and that kind mindset to myself versus that judgmental, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just, and I'm just taking away from my work, but like, yeah, having that care and that compassion. And then it's like, from
Yes.
there, I can work through that. I am a huge fan. Have you heard of EMDR?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God. I love EMDR. I wish I would love to be able to think of ways we could do something similar like
With
this with
dogs.
dogs. Wouldn't that
Oh,
be
I'm
cool?
sure it's on the way. Like,
Yeah.
there has to be.
It's so cool. Like, it's just so amazing to like be able to replay those situations and be able to do it. It's like, because it's like that thing where people say you have that bad situation. And they're like, okay, well, just sleep on it. But, sometimes some trauma is too big for us to just sleep on it and we don't recover from it. And so to be able to process that again and have a different association, different thought pattern, oh my God, it makes such a big difference. So yeah, I worked through that situation and, and with EMDR because of that. But yeah, to be able to recognize that and be like, okay, I'm not okay right now. And it's okay to
Right.
not be okay. Why am I not okay? What's going on? And yeah, being kind to yourself.
It is okay to not be okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, we say that so much to our clients and their dogs, but like, again, never comes back to us. We
Yeah.
think that we need to always be okay. And if we're not okay, there's something wrong with us.
Yeah.
No, this is a hard job. This is a hard
Mhm.
profession in an unregulated industry. Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna feel like a lot. And just, yeah, I think the biggest thing I want people to take away from this conversation is just it's okay if you're
Mhm.
struggling, and it is
Yeah.
okay if you are not where you think you need to be with other people. It's
Mhm.
just do it in a way that you are still enjoying this. And that might
Yeah.
be that you only take, X amount of clients a month. You might only, do X amount of classes. But if it's preserving your mental health and helping you still love what you do, I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, definitely well worth it. Yeah, being kind to yourself. Like, and if you have to think that, like, for me, in those times when I have been down on myself and I've gone into that imploding mode, it's like, even then, like, I started to think of myself as my best friend would think of me, or I'd think of it for my
Right.
daughter. Yeah, because it's like, it's so much easier sometimes to be kinder to other people. So if that's where you're at in that moment, that's okay. Be kind to yourself, as you would be to that other person. What would you want for them in that situation?
How would you talk
And
to your client? Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
Yes, exactly. So I think that's really helpful too. And it's and remembering who you are. Like for me, like probably this is like kind of a big turning point in my life. Like it's been a few years now that I had been in different relationships where it was like abusive in different ways, especially like the emotional abuse is pretty rough at times. And I just got so beaten down. I felt so crummy about myself, so shitty, and I was just made to feel like and you're gaslighted all the times too.
oh my
Like you
God,
feel like
yeah.
you're crazy and you feel like I'm messed up. Like
You second guess your own brain.
all the time. And it's like, and then you're trying to fix it. And then you start to see those little things like where you're like, okay, it is changing, it is getting better. And then of course it never does because it's a cycle of abuse that it just gets, it'll get better, but then it's gonna get worse
To a
again.
point.
And then
Yeah.
it's gonna explode. And then you're gonna go back to that repair process. But I just happened to I was just looking through pictures and I just happened to come across this picture of myself as like a little baby. And it was like just right after I was born. And I was like, oh, like I just felt like this like feeling of like compassion where I'm like, oh my God, like I have been telling myself I need to stay with this person and I need to put up with this. I need to fix this and I need to make it work. And I'm like, I would never have thought that for this little girl, and that's
Right.
me. Like,
Oh my God, we could go into a
really,
whole thing about like
yeah,
tapping into our inner child, but really, like, I love the idea that a lot of people have of post a photo of your childhood self on a mirror and
yeah,
that's who you're talking to. That is who you are
mhm,
belittling and tearing down. When you think of it
yes.
that way, it's like, oh, why would I do that to her? Like,
I hadn't heard that before, but that's so interesting because I kept that picture in a drawer and I would look at her all the time and I'm like, that's me. I have to be
mhm.
kind to myself the way I would be to her. So that's so cool.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was like Jay Shetty or maybe Mel Robbins. I love both of them. But
Yes.
they'll say like, put your childhood photo on a mirror and like see them and like that is who you are tearing down. Don't do that. And it's like, well, yeah, oh my God.
Yeah, what would you want for her in this situation? And I
Right.
think that helps too to feel like that freedom to stand up for yourself because we have to stand up for ourselves. Like, as much as we want to live in that ideal world where everything is, in harmony
Everyone gets
and yeah,
along. Yeah.
that's just not reality, unfortunately. And, and it's okay to stand up for yourself. And sometimes that will mean losing clients. Like, with fear free, I think that's a hard thing for people when they go into like when vets are adopting this and there'll be
Right.
clients that are like, well, my pet's fine. Like you just push through. They don't need medication or we don't need this training. And it's like, well, actually, we're not going to treat your pet at the expense of their emotional well-being. Like we need to protect both their emotional and their physical well-being. And sometimes, that's where you need to break up with your clients. And it's okay to break up with your clients. Like,
I
and
broke up with my old vet and I found a
yeah.
fear-free vet and it was the best like point of like ever working with a vet ever again. I'm like, "Oh my God, it's worth the 40-minute drive if I know
Yes.
my dog and my cat are going to be in a better mental state and not be pushed."
Yes. God, doesn't that feel good? Like I actually like taking my pets into the vet now. Like,
Oh,
and
they
I'll,
love it. They walk in
yeah,
super happy now.
totally. Isn't that
Never
cool?
before. No.
Yeah, and it's such a different feeling, and it's like to know that you're doing well for your pet physically and emotionally at the same time. Like it just feels so good, and like and they just had so much fun. Like
And knowing you can trust the staff and like you're on the
yes,
same page and you don't
mhm,
need to worry and like over advocate and like
yes,
because I feel like with other vets that like I would show up and I'd have to like put on my training vest and
yeah,
like, okay, this is how I have to handle this because you're not gonna listen to me. And
100%. Me too.
ugh,
Yeah.
now that I have a fear-free vet, I'm like, "Oh, this is like it." My only wish is just that anyone that needs a vet, they can work with a fear-free vet.
Yes, yes, to be able to
It's
have that
life-changing
difference, it really is,
and
and
stress reducing on you too.
oh my god, yeah, it's that is like yeah, before it was just like that stress of like, "Okay, I'm gonna delay this because I don't wanna have to,
Put it off for a
put 'em through
year.
that." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like now I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna go back for" they encourage happy
Happy
visits, and I'm gonna
visits.
go do some victory visits just for fun, like, I love that, and it's like enrichment for them, honestly.
Right.
And
Well,
how
it's
cool is that to actually have it be enrichment now versus like yeah.
fear, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, this has just been such an awesome conversation. I'm so excited that I finally got to talk to you and meet with you, but also just talk with you about mental health because I know you that is very passionate topic for you.
Yes.
And I think people are gonna love hearing this side of it and just the way we've approached it, this conversation. It's just I love it.
Well, I
So
I
good.
love it too, and I just love getting to talk with you. I love all the work that you do, and thank you for being so real and for inviting these like honest conversations because I do think they will make such a big difference for other people to not feel alone and to not feel that isolation and to know that it's okay to not be okay and that everybody's going through something and whether it's,
Yes.
and same thing with dogs, like none of us have to be perfect and taking away that type of pressure is just so freeing for everybody.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm gonna have to have you on for another episode, obviously, because we
I
could
would
just
love that.
we could talk all day.
I also I feel like, "Oh, we're done already? Damn, it went quite so fast."
And if you like what we're doing here on the Leashed Mind podcast and you want to help others find us, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's leaving a review on Apple or giving us a star rating on Spotify, or just leaving a little R plus on our Facebook page. It's all appreciated. Thank you, and we will be back with another episode.